Good to go? Can everyone hear me? Apologies for that. My laptop is on its last legs, obviously. Anyway, look, I'm just going to make the assumption that you didn't hear anything that I said there, so I'm going to start very quickly again and say welcome to the webinar for the Engage and Educate Fund. Absolutely delighted to afford everyone this opportunity to just basically create a level playing field for everyone, share our tips, basically just make it as easy as possible for you to put in as good an application as possible. Absolutely delighted to have Mason Hayes and Curran and the Irish government funding this project, but particularly Mason Hayes and Curran are hugely passionate about the education space, hugely passionate about the educational disadvantage in this in Ireland, whether that be from a migrant background, from a socioeconomic disadvantaged background, or people with disabilities. We're really looking forward to the next 3 years working with them and just finding all the best projects that are around Ireland that will hopefully help the people in these situations and really empower them across their local communities. So just very quickly, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Owen Ryan, obviously. I am the fund manager for Engage and Educate, and the person that has saved us today is Aisling Redmond. Aisling has kindly fixed our tech problem, but she's also the fund manager for the Education Fund, which is currently in selection process. So between myself and Aisling, we've run 4 funds to date, and one thing that we noticed was, well, how do we feed back in a meaningful way to allow people to put in the best applications that they can? And the idea around that was, well, why don't we try a webinar? So lesson learned number 1 is to adequately test the capability of your microphones before you start a webinar, but we are not alien to making mistakes at Social Innovation Fund, so hopefully this is all working perfectly now and we can crack into the meat of the webinar itself. So what I might do is I might just start with trying to just give you a background of the Engage and Educate Fund itself. And what I'll do is I'll run through the dedicated webpage that we have up at the moment. And what I'd like to focus on is the criteria. So what I'm going to do, if you just bear with me for a second, I'm going to share my screen. And could I say if you could use the comments section on your YouTube part, just to let us know if anything's not working or if there's particular things around the share screening that you can't see, and we'll try and do that as best we can. So I'm just going to open the dedicated web page. I'm just going to speak a bit around, just a small bit around the why. So look, this is the first year of us doing this. We're really looking for projects from all of Ireland that, like we've said at the top of the web page there, that just really empower people, because we believe that everyone goes into school with full potential. But unfortunately, in some cases, the education system lets down certain people, and we want to give them the best chance to progress and thrive in education. And that's where we share a common goal with Mason Hayes and Curran, and obviously from the support from the Irish government as well. And that's what's brought about the Engage and Educate Fund. So a little bit about what does the fund offer, and we'll speak a bit more about this at the question stage. But in the first year, it's going to be a share of a fund of 150,000, and that 150,000 will be shared amongst 4 or 5 projects, depending on the caliber of the applications that we receive, and also the types of applications that we get. And the breakdown of that 150,000 between the 4 and the 5 will be a split between a cash award, non-restricted cash award, and non-financial supports. And I'll speak a bit more about the non-financial supports later in the webinar. I'll also speak a bit about what is a 2 or 3 bespoke program, because what we pride ourselves on at Social Innovation Fund Ireland is we try and tailor all the programs that we run to the successful applicants that are the recipients of the funds that we run. So there's no set amount of supports that we provide, but I'll be able to give typical examples of what you can expect. So I'm just gonna speak a bit about the criteria, because this is what we're asked about a lot, and it really is fundamental and central to how we run our funds at Social Innovation Fund Ireland. So we have core criteria that every successful application and ultimately successful awardee needs to meet. And there are 6 core criteria. Very quickly, the impact needs to be primarily in the Republic of Ireland. They need to be innovative. The projects, that is, need to be innovative in an Irish context. And the third I is that they need to solve critical social issues. So in this instance, we're talking about educational disadvantage, and we've gone into the breakdown of what we believe that means. So we believe that every project that applies is going to match these criteria, and they set the cornerstone of every application, and also a lot of the questions that are in the application form itself. So the other 3 criteria that are really, really important, and something that I'm just going to talk a bit more about, along with the whole idea of what is innovative, is you need to show an appetite to scale across Ireland. So what do we mean by showing an appetite to scale? You don't have to have a project at this moment in time that spreads across all of Ireland, but you need to show that you have the start of a plan. So for instance, if you are in Galway, that you have identified the steps on how you can spread to Mayo, Donegal, Longford, Cork, Wexford, wherever it might be in Ireland. So we appreciate that the ideas that are going to be presented will be a little bit earlier stage, but there needs to be that plan in place for how you might scale in the future. And obviously part of winning the Engage and Educate grant is that we are going to help you to do that. So the next part that I want to talk about is the criteria around testing. And this is something that we really pride ourselves on at Social Innovation Fund Ireland, and it's something central to every fund that we run. You need to demonstrate that the project works in some meaningful way. You need to demonstrate that you've tested your really good idea in some way. Whether that's we ran a program across 12 weeks with a cohort of students between the ages of 5 and 12, and we had an evidence base that informed the program design and the 10-week program that we ran. And we tested X and Y, and we did that through feedback surveys, and we did that through having analysts there on the days that the program was running, and at the very end we evaluated in a certain way. That's fundamentally what we mean by testing. Sorry, I'm just getting a message through saying that there's a problem with the sound. Let me just quickly have a look at that.
Direct them to the other one.
So Michael, you've got a question there. I'm just wondering, first and foremost, have you got the correct link? And
can you click on Michael there?
Yeah, sure. So Michael, we're just going to click on your comment there.
Yeah, he's on the wrong link.
Okay.
There's a link now in the text.
So Michael, there's a link in the text just about 3 minutes ago. I'm just going to copy and paste that to you very quickly if I can. So guys, apologies. We had problems at the beginning and we've had to change the link. So I'm just going to post that link again, Michael. Hopefully you can get up and running. So hopefully you've gotten that link now. So guys, where was I? I was talking a bit about testing. So that is one of the core criteria that's really important. We get a number of questions about it. And really, if you just think about any project that you're designing, if it's over the course of 10 weeks, that there's a start, middle, and end to that 10 weeks, that you have a very clear reason for including the certain elements to the project that you're including, and that you're actually you're gathering the data as you go on, and you're evaluating at the end what that data means. So whether that's quantitative or qualitative, that you're gathering this, and it shows that you have something that you can move forward with, because we're really obviously interested in projects that can scale, but collecting the data in terms of an evidence base for why you designed the project that you're implementing, but also what are the results from the previous iterations of the project that you've gone through. So sorry guys, I'm on back on the web page there. Hope everyone can see the screen that I'm sharing. Just a little bit about, as I scroll down the screen, about projects that can demonstrate they incorporate 3 of the below list will have an advantage. What we mean by that is there is, in terms of education disadvantage, we really want and really interested in hearing from projects that deal with people from disadvantaged socioeconomic backgrounds, including travelers, but also focus on people with disabilities and people from a migrant background. We're also very interested in people that, or projects that deal with adult education and physical education, but fundamental to all of this is that holistic approach. So we really want to see projects that include everyone across the community, because ultimately we want the projects that apply for the Engage and Educate Fund to really put the student or put the person at the center of the project, at the center of the community. So really projects that empower people to really get enthused about education again, but also bring the whole community along with them on their projects. And we believe that one of the ways in which you can do this is including those target groups in the project design. And we've, as part of the research phase, seen some really interesting projects internationally that do this, and it really does give brilliant results at the end of the day. So I've spoken a bit about the research and evaluation component. That is something around testing that I spoke about. We're also really interested in projects that have clear short and medium term goals. So I spoke about the criteria around scaling. You can't scale if you don't have a plan. And if you don't set goals, it's harder for you to achieve and also to implement new learnings as you go forward with your project. So scrolling down the page again, another one of the core criteria that we have at Social Innovation Fund, and as central to the Engage and Educate Fund, is that as a registered charity, we can only give cash grants, cash awards, and non-financial supports to organizations of a not-for-profit legal form. So there are lots of different not-for-profit legal forms. One of the more popular ones that we've seen across the 4 funds that we've run now is the company limited by guarantee. There's a number of ways in which you can incorporate as a not-for-profit legal form, but that is fundamentally core criteria for us. Your project has to be a registered business and it has to take a not-for-profit legal form. So that's a bit about the criteria. Now let's move on to the application form itself. And what we'll talk about very briefly is just how do you put in the best application. So just bear with me as I click into the application form itself. I suppose two important things around the application form is that the deadline is 5 p.m. on Wednesday, the 5th of April. And we've also included, you'll see me just circling my mouse around an icon of what's supposed to be an application form. If you click on this icon, you'll be able to get a PDF version of the full application form, which allows you to read ahead all the questions that we have as part of the application form itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click into that PDF. I'm going to deal with the first section, really. I'm not going to go through all of the questions, but I'm just going to deal with before you begin, because myself and Aisling have put this together based on the number of funds that we've run to date and tried to collate all of the feedback and where we believe we can best assist you fill out the best application form that you can for your project. So I suppose it's important to bear in mind that we get a huge number of applications, and particularly for this fund, we're really excited because there's a huge amount of interest across all of Ireland, and I think we're going to get a record number of applications, which is challenging for us as a team, but absolutely fantastic that the word is getting out there and that we're getting really good ideas coming in from all corners of Ireland. But I suppose the first thing that we would always say is answer the questions with clear and concise language. And I know that that might sound really simplistic, but quite often we find that people maybe trail off the point a small bit. And I think it's just really important to answer the question as best you can and really use the language of the question to provide the best possible answer that represents the great project that you have. For this application process, we've actually included a word count just to ably assist you get a feel for the kind of the length of answer that we're looking for. In many cases, you should be able to explain your project in 250 and 300 words. In other instances, there are questions there we don't need the same length of answer, but it's really important to get your point across as clearly and concisely as possible. You've heard me speak about scaling and you've heard me speak about testing. Central to both of these is facts and figures. Show us what you've done to date. Show us the evidence base that you have for doing the project that you have, and use facts and figures to tell the story. There's nothing better than showing the results of your project to demonstrate the impact that you've had to date, and also to share the big vision that you have for your project in terms of where you want to go. I suppose coupling on to this is use examples to further explain your answers. Try and use where has it worked really, really well. Try and use examples and stories of how your project has really had impact in your local community for the people that your project has, or for the beneficiaries of your project when you've run it before. There's nothing better than a clear example of where you've done it to try and explain what you're trying to achieve, and to also try and articulate the vision that you have for your project moving forward. Again, using research, using pilot results is a bit about what I was speaking about there, but there's nothing better than using links, using graphics, if you have them, to try and best demonstrate how your project gets to the beneficiaries of your of what you're trying to achieve. Again, I'm just going down through the list here, sharing the impact of your figures to date, using the links I've spoken about already, but hugely, hugely important, and we can't stress this enough, is use the language of the question. I think when you read down through the questions, you'll see the language of our criteria that is central to Social Innovation Fund and central to any fund that we run. Really clearly describe, how is it innovative? You tell us, how is your project innovative in an Irish context? Because that's what we're looking for. We're looking for projects that are going to really try and address the critical social issue in a different way, in a way that is efficient for the Irish society, but really moving forward can get out to a greater number of people in the best possible way. So keep the criteria in mind when answering the question, and you'll often find that in the language of the question, the language of our criteria will be there. So please, please, please ensure that you give your project the best possible chance, because what we find is people have huge amounts of energy and enthusiasm when they're answering these questions, but just be sure to be clear and concise when you're answering these questions, just to give your project the best possible chance of getting forward and getting to the interview stage. And a bit about the word counts are there for a guide only, just to give you that best possible chance. Can I just very quickly talk about question one, which is, well, I suppose there's two parts there. We have, just above section 2, we have what's known as a Mad Lib, which again just allows us to really understand your project in 2 sentences. So the name of your project, just fill in those gaps. I think there's an opportunity in the field beneath that just to write that out again. So use the probes there where we've got name of your project, include your name, really address the major challenge that you're trying to solve, and also those target beneficiaries. So, for example, it might be migrants in DEIS schools. They're your target beneficiaries. And again, the name of your project, the key problem that you're trying to solve. And then, unlike current alternatives, do your research, understand what the current alternatives are out there in Ireland. So what I might do, just before I open up into questions, is I might just use an example of iSchool. So iSchool are a really innovative project that are dealing with early school leavers in Ireland, and they're one of the recent recipients of our ThinkTech award, which was basically projects that are using tech at the core of their solution to try and solve a critical social issue. So in this instance, it's the issue of early school leavers in Ireland. And I'm just going to quickly go through all of the criteria and how iSchool demonstrated as part of their application how they dealt with each criteria. So how are they innovative in an Irish context? They use a blended learning model where they have early school leavers that can log in online, but can also attend blended learning centres across Ireland, be it Longford, Limerick, Dublin, where they can actually log in to a personalised learning platform that brings them through a number of modules that gets them to QQI level 3, which is the equivalent of the junior cert. So what critical social issue are they solving? Early school leavers, there's 3,300 of them every single year in Ireland. Big critical social issue in Ireland at the moment. Is there impact in Ireland? Of course it is. They have a number of blended learning centres across Ireland, and the virtual learning platform is available to everyone in Ireland. How have they scaled? They've been active since 2009. They have, I think, a success rate of 85%, and 385 students have gone through their program to date. So again, those are the facts and figures that they would have used as part of their application form to demonstrate what they've already achieved, and then also how they want to scale up to that 3,300. That also demonstrates as well, I suppose, how they've tested. And so they provided data on what they've collated to date across those 385 students since 2009, and showed the journey of each student on how they moved on, in some cases onto Maynooth University or onto trades and so forth. So we've talked about them being innovative in Irish context. We've talked about a critical social issue. We've talked about the impact in Ireland. We've talked about their plans for scale, and we've talked about how they've tested. So they're obviously a registered charity in Ireland as well, so they meet the core 6 criteria and are a perfect example. If you want to check them out, iSchool.ie. They've got a brilliant scrollable one-page website that actually deals with a lot of the core criteria that I've spoken about as well. So a good example of a successful project that have been a recipient of our ThinkTech Fund recently and are doing really, really good things in Ireland. So look, I might hold it there. Aisling, have we collated some questions that we might be able to answer? And I'll just go back into the YouTube channel. So we've got about maybe 10-15 minutes for questions. I hope everyone's got sound at this point.
I think so.
We think so. Just again, guys, we had a bit of trouble at the start. There's a new link posted that will allow you to hear and see everything that I'm saying. I'm just going to adjust my camera there. So why don't we start with question number 1, Aisling. Who's it from? What's the question?
So this is a question I got via email, just effectively going through the non-financial support. So
Okay.
Could we give a bit more detail
brilliant.
on that?
So I spoke a bit about at the start of the talk. I spoke a bit about the non-financial supports. So we pride ourselves at tailoring everything, at making everything bespoke at Social Innovation Fund Ireland. So I'm going to use an example of just a couple of supports from ThinkTech that I think we would be very useful carrying forward to the Engage and Educate Fund. So let's use a typical example of an Engage and Educate project that's successful. What we've done is we've scheduled the program so that we're going to have a decision around the end of May that we're going to award to the successful projects around June. And bearing in mind that a lot of people are on holidays in July and August, we've provided that period of time for planning your project and making sure it gets up to date. So let's take a typical example of a project that delivers across September, October, and November. So what we would envisage as non-financial supports for a project that would deliver across those 3 months is that we would provide you with a mentor. So let's use iSchool as an example. iSchool are starting a project at the start of September. They have 10 students starting at the beginning of September, and they've designed a virtual learning platform that assists these 10 students to complete a course across 10 weeks. So there's obviously, there's a tech component there, there's a project design component there, there's the students themselves. There's a lot for Marianne Checkley at iSchool to be dealing with. And sometimes it's really, really useful to step outside that project and use a mentor as a sounding board. So what we do on ThinkTech is Marianne meets up with a mentor every single month, and any issue that she's having with her iSchool, in this instance, for the purpose of this example, let's say every 2 weeks across the 3 months, there's certain issues with the project design that she just really feels she needs a sounding board for. A mentor would provide that. And what we do is, again, depending on the successful projects that we get for Engage and Educate, we would match you with a mentor that has specific skills that can help you across those 10 weeks to solve the issues that are cropping up. And we can't predict what those might be, but we certainly pick mentors that have the skill set that can do that. So that's one example of what a non-financial support might be. Another example might be a convening twice, 2 convenings throughout those 10 weeks, where we bring in educational experts into the Offices and Social Innovation Fund that allow you to take, maybe for instance, it's the evaluation phase, maybe 6 weeks into the 12-week program, you're starting to develop what the evaluation of your project is, and we will bring in expertise across a full-day workshop that would help you build out what that evaluation component might be. So that's another example. A third example might be some expertise that helps you with the marketing communications of your project. So you obviously want to scale and spread this project across all of Ireland, but you need to tell the story of what your project is doing. So there might be an opportunity to provide you with some hired support in marketing and communications that I suppose a marketing communications company that have a specific interest and skill set in the education space that assists you to build your story, that assists you to make videos, to get your narrative correct, to really fully best tell the story so that by the end of the 12 weeks, you're able to go out and achieve follow-on funding for the scale that you want to achieve across the next few years. So look, those are 3 typical examples of non-financials that we would provide. There might be something around accountancy, there might be something around law, anything like that are bespoke to your project. We try and work as best we can with the individual projects to provide the non-financial suite of supports that best enable you assist your project to scale and spread.
Great. I have another one here, just around. I have another one here, just around like multiple applications. So, can someone send in 2 different projects for review from the same organization?
Okay, great. So, is yes. An organization can put forward multiple projects, but obviously they need to very clearly define how the project, if you were to be successful both, how does the project team work? Who are the nominated contact persons and the runners of the project in that instance? How are you going to manage the mechanics of the projects that you're going to achieve so that I always say look at the projects individually and ensure that you're filling out the application form so that it puts the best foot forward for that project individually. And I think being very upfront about the fact that you have multiple applications in is is something that you should address in the application form as well. And if you were to be successful with both, how would you manage that?
Okay, I have one here from Phil Smith. In reference to the marketing support, would SIFI pay for the actual filming as opposed to the training or organization of the filming, for example? So I suppose that's in reference to would we pay for communications elements?
Yeah, again, sorry, Phil, was it?
Phil.
Yeah, Phil, that's a very good question, and there's no right and wrong answer. Depending on the number of projects that are selected, you will have a certain nominated amount of cash grant and also certain nominated value of non-financial support. So we could work through you how best to spend that money, essentially. So again, it depends on what the breakdown of costs are for your project. It might be a case where we have someone from a marketing comms background that will provide you with the supports, and maybe we can work with getting some kind of working out some kind of a deal for that, and then there might be identified additions. Maybe there's costs associated with the video, costs associated with a one-day workshop where that business comes in and helps your project. But again, it's all down to the specific needs of the project, and we always spend time at the beginning, so typically June, July, working out how best to use the non-financial support so it allows your project to go further.
So just around testing then, Owen, can we give a bit more clarity on how much testing people need?
Yeah, so the testing is a question that we get quite a bit. So let's use an example. Let's use iSchool as an example again, where they're dealing with early school leavers. Let's say they have 10 pupils that are working on the virtual learning platform across 10 weeks. And let's say that was done in 2015 for argument's sake. What we typically would like to see there is how did you design the project? Of the 10 students, what did they do? How did you measure their progression? And what were the results at the end? So again, I talk about the start, middle, and end. So obviously, you'll have assumptions in terms of what you're looking to achieve, and clearly identifying that might be a 5 to 10 page document that lays out why you're doing what you're doing, what you hope to achieve as part of the project, and what you hope to test. So it might be qualitative feedback. So every 2 weeks, you're asking the students, what are they learning and what's missing? Give details around parts of the program that they like, parts of the program that aren't working for them. And then at the very end of the 10-week project, that there is a very clear evaluation procedure that you put in place that captures all of the learnings. It captures everything that the 10 students in this instance have achieved, have learned. There might be quantitative analysis, so numbers. They did a project, they achieved a score. They did a project, they completed 7 of the 10 modules. It took them X amount of time. And also the qualitative feedback, maybe there's a component in there for the parent, a component in there for the teacher, a component in there for a self-assessment of the student itself. There might be an external assessor as well. And all of that then goes into, I suppose, a block of learning for 2015. You do the same for 2016. You might iterate based on the learnings from 2015. And that in essence is what we mean by testing. I suppose another point to make as well is that you're always looking for best practices, that maybe there are international examples, that you've done some research and you want to implement practices as well. Again, it's just documenting everything that you're doing, just showing us that there is a reason for doing what you're doing, and also the results from previous tests that you've run and previous projects that you've run. So for instance, 2015, 2016, this is what it showed us, this is how we iterated, this is how we improved. And as part of what we hope to achieve in 2017, between September and November in this instance, this is how we look to run the project. Okay. So I hope that question answers your question. If you have anything more specific, Phil, by all means, drop us an email. So guys, we've got 3 or 4 minutes, so maybe okay. Time for 2 more questions.
Great. So we have 2 here. One, thankfully, Michael Newham found us on this stream. So welcome, Michael.
Welcome, Michael.
So just, can projects focus on having their impact delivered locally before expanding nationally?
Yeah, absolutely. So very good question, Michael. I mean, we're not suggesting that you're already scaled out across all of Ireland. What we mean by the scaling criteria is that you have an appetite and a clear plan to scale across Ireland. But obviously, everybody needs to start in their local community, for instance, and you need to prove that it works there first. The big part of our mission at Social Innovation Fund Ireland is we want to take the best ideas from Offaly, from Galway, and we want to scale them across all of Ireland. So absolutely, it doesn't have to have scaled at this moment in time, but you need to demonstrate that you have a clear plan for that scale.
Okay.
So will we go with the last question?
Yeah, so the last question, does the project have to be funded solely by Social Innovation Fund Ireland? So do you want to take that?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. It doesn't. If there is existing funding in place and you have a very clear idea of what the funding from Social Innovation Fund Ireland, Mason Hayes and Curran, and the Irish government would do, then clearly lay that out in your application form. We're not restrictive in that manner. If you believe that this project, for instance, costs 100,000 to achieve, and you believe that, for example, the 10, 15, 20,000 cash grant will allow you to deliver a specific component of this project, that is absolutely fine. I think there's a huge value in the non-financial supports then helping that money basically go further, and that's where we can really make, for instance, in this example, that 100k or the 20k that comes from Social Innovation Fund just go a lot further and allow your idea to really scale and grow across all of Ireland over the next couple of years. So guys, look, that's all we have time for. Apologies again for the slight hiccup at the beginning. Just a reminder that I'm available at socialinnovation.ie. If you've got any questions via email, I'm happy to answer those. The application deadline is the 5th of April, which is Wednesday week at 5 p.m. Again, if you have any questions, please send us an email. The last thing that I would say is have a look at the application form, download it, read through the questions, read the questions with the criteria in mind. I think, Aisling, if we've learned anything from the last 4 funds, is that the best applications are the ones that are really clear, really concise, use the language of the question in their answer, and really focus on the criteria and use facts and figures, impact, everything that you've done to date, really clearly communicating how and why you believe this works and how you're going to achieve the scale over the next coming years are the ones that tend to be successful ultimately. So listen, best of luck from all of us at Social Innovation Fund, Mason Hayes and Curran. We're really, really excited. It looks like we're going to have a really healthy, probably record number of applications. So look, we really wish you the best of luck. And again, if you have any questions, please send me an email, owen@socialinnovation.ie, and really wish you the best of luck. So some brilliant applications coming in. The last thing that I would say as well, really, really important, is that if you do put in an application form, that if you are successful, we'll be calling you for interviews on the 18th, 19th or 20th of April. So that's a Tuesday, Wednesday or Thursday. We can't tell you immediately what days you're going to be on, because it will just depend on the panels that we organize, but you need to be available on those days. At this moment in time, the interviews are going to take place in our offices, but look, we'll give you probably a week's notice as if you're successful or not successful, and the details of your interview date and time. But the interviews will be happening on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. By putting in that application form, you are stating that you're available for interview on those dates, because it's a very it's a very concentrated selection process, and the availability of the expert panel is 18th, 19th, and 20th of April. So you need to be available on those days for interview. So listen, best of luck again with your applications, and we look forward to seeing what comes in. Oh, sorry, that's here, isn't it?